Well, happy, I don't even know what day, Tuesday, everybody. I do that all the time with my days. This is Tammy Lynn Connors with Hope, and this is just to show you that anybody can do this. I have my good friend Ross here with me today. How are you, Ross? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, great. And when I say good friend, I mean good friend. Um, so my podcast here and YouTube channel is all about helping other people evolve. What I do is I interview people that have been through a struggle to get to a strength. And my vision and my goal is just to help somebody get out of bed that day. You know, maybe you think that you're alone in your struggles and your life is hopeless. But when I interview these people, unfortunately, that have went through some strong struggles, but they've got hope now. And so that's just my vision, is just to offer everyone else hope. So I met Ross, was it 3 or 4 years ago?
4 years.
4 years ago. I met him at an event. It was an overdose awareness event. And it was a pretty sad moment at that event. You know,
we were filming the video.
Yeah, we were filming a video, and we were filming the video of you. We were actually at a funeral home, and they opened the casket, and it was full of pill bottles and syringes. And it was just an awareness for overdose. And it was the day before Overdose Awareness Day. Correct. So that would have been like August 28th or something like that. I'm trying to get my dates right. And so anyways, at the end, Ross and I kind of talked a little bit. And then one of my friends, she spoke a little bit about her daughter, losing her daughter. And then our other friend, Juan, had talked about, he was going to be the one to talk about hope the next day. So that's when I got the word hope. That's when it really came to me. And I prayed about the name, and helping other people evolve came to fruition. So Ross, as we talked that day, we talked a little bit about that I had lost my 6.5-month-old son. And unfortunately, Ross has lost 2 children to overdoses. And so this is really a hard subject for us to talk about, but I have truly been blessed by listening to him share his story in order to help other people. And that's what I think it's about. He had a group called FACTS, Families and Addicts Coming Together. And I learned so much there. I would go to meetings and just to hear you pour into other people what your loss, but you helped so many other people, and you still do. Today, we just did a phone call with a young lady. Yeah. You know, it's just like, he called me today and was like, hey, Tammy, I got this girl. She's possibly needs to go to detox. Will you talk to her? And we work together like that. And I think that's incredible. So if you want to, I guess, share some of your story, you know, of I know it's going to be hard, but sure. But you got this, because I got this with you. We got this together. We got this together. So,
yeah, kind of going back to what you started talking about. The day I met you, I don't know why, but I was just kind of drawn to you. Were kind of standing there in the middle of the room all by yourself, and I'm like, I'm going to at least go up and say hi and get to know you. And it was one of the best friendships I've ever created. Mm-hmm. So it was an awesome day to get to meet you, even though it was under very horrible circumstances, but I wouldn't give it up for anything.
Me either.
A little bit about my story. I lost my daughter in April of 2015. She had been in active addiction for about 6 years. Started off with pills, then kind of ran the gamut from there all the way to the point where she was using heroin. The day we lost her was the one and only time she had ever shot up. And as we all know, fentanyl is a bad thing. And mm-hmm. It was pure fentanyl that she actually got. She left behind at the time, was a 4-year-old son. He's now 10, my grandson, and I raise him full time. Mm-hmm. I'll show you guys a quick picture of her.
Yes. That's so beautiful. Daughter. Oh, wait a minute. There we go. So beautiful. So beautiful, Ross. So beautiful.
But I've talked about this in a lot of my meetings. Another thing when I talk to people is addiction doesn't care who you are. Mm-hmm. She had everything going for her. She was a cheerleader, National Honor Society student, straight A's, and then just started hanging out with some bad people, making some bad choices. No matter how hard we tried, we just could not get her back. as any of you know that are ever involved with addiction, they have to want it, not us. We never got her to the point where we could do that with her. And even losing her son, to CSB, I ended up taking custody of him. We were hoping that was going to be her catalyst to get her back on the right path again. It wasn't. Literally, the day that they signed the paperwork, it was about 3 weeks later when she finally overdosed. So we've just been trying to do the best we can because, here I am, 55 years old, and my childbearing days were over. I have 4 kids, and they're all grown adults. So getting back to raising a 4-year-old was very interesting, to say the least.
Yes.
Here I'm thinking it's my time to start traveling and seeing the world and all that kind of stuff. And now I'm back playing dad again.
And you're doing a great job of it, by the way.
Homework, schoolwork, learning how to play with wrestlers again on the floor and stuff like that. It's been interesting, but I would not change it for the world.
Yes.
It's so cool to kind of see life through his eyes. It's what's kept me young. It's what keeps me challenged. Is he comes to me with questions that I haven't had to answer in 30 years,
right?
And now they're coming back again and stuff. I go, where are the babies coming? All that type of stuff. So I'm kind of getting back into this whole child rearing frame of mind again. But like I said, he keeps me young. He keeps me challenged, and like I said, I would not change it for the world. I mean, he's been a blessing through this whole thing. So.
Yeah, he is a sweet boy too. Yep. He really is. It's funny because I remember when I was home, I don't know. Oh, the Angel Walk, when I came home for the Angel Walk. And I remember I pulled up and my hair's a different color than last time he had seen me. And it had been a while since he's seen me. And at first he was like, and then he was like, oh, Tammy. And it was just cool just because he remembers all the people. He interacts with people so well. And he just has a heart of gold. And I think that comes from you for sure.
The thing is, though, even if I go back up to, even when he was 4, we didn't know how he was going to handle losing his mom. And we tried to keep it we didn't hide anything from him, but we tried to keep it as sterile as possible.
Sure.
We told him mommy was sick, and that Jesus was going to take her, it took her and make her better. And as time's gone on, he's come to us with questions, especially as a year or 2 passed, and he starts to understand the passage of time. And we finally realized, that mommy's not coming back.
Right.
And so we've kind of had to walk that walk with him. But for somebody at his age who's been through what he's been through, he has got the most even temperament of any kid I've ever met in my entire life. So like I said, it's been a joy, raising him. And I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for him.
And I believe that wholeheartedly, because that's a lot of times, even when I lost Cody at 6.5 months old, my biggest thing was I'm going to lean on Chad right now, my other son. And that was what I had to do. And I feel like that's, where you're at too. Like, you're like, well, I have to go on because I have him, and
I tell people so many times, it's a blessing and a curse because there were so many dark days I had that he, got me through, so it's just been, I love you, Papa, hug, Papa, whatever it might be. But then there's certain things that he does, a gesture, sometimes the way he smiles or, the way he'll cock his eyes. I see my daughter and it just kind of sends me, right back into my feelings.
And those feelings are real, boy, that's for sure. But here's the thing and we kind of talked about this before we got on here, like our feelings, like it's okay if we cry on here. It's okay to show emotions because so many times people block that. And then that honestly shows him that he shouldn't show emotions. I'm listening to a podcast right now that's talking about that. It's a man that's talking about sharing your emotions, and especially with men. You guys, your truth or whatever you've been told.
You know me well enough. I am not one to hide. I don't hide my emotions very well, no matter how hard I try.
Well, that's good. It's good though, I feel like, and so I wanted to just go back just a minute when you said addiction doesn't discriminate, right?
No, it doesn't.
And I can remember back in the day when people always thought, oh, alcohol, drugs, all this, they're just bums on the street, that's what they are. And that's how they were raised. And now we're learning and seeing that it should never be like that,
No,
because it's
absolutely not.
not like that.
No.
There are people out there. I see some of these people that you would have never in a million years, but how do you know? You just don't know what people are going through. You don't know the struggles they're going through. You don't know that they just had back surgery or something and the doctor prescribed them all of
Right.
this pain medication. And now the doctor's like, guess what? We're done with your pain medication. And they don't know what to do. They don't know the avenues to go.
Right. There's a couple of years ago, I had a friend of mine. He's an attorney. He actually represented my kids' boards once in their youth when they were getting in trouble. Never in a million years. And come to find out that he had passed away from an overdose.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it doesn't discriminate, doesn't care who you are, what you look like, what your social status is.
Right.
If you get involved in it, it's going to take you down.
Right.
It's going to take you down.
Exactly. And that's the thing that I think that so many people don't realize, and they don't realize what an epidemic we really truly
Right.
have out here, and especially with the fentanyl, you know.
And it's not just, addicts, so to speak, even the casual users,
Mm-hmm.
the kids that, to smoke marijuana,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. You can't even do that anymore without fear of, it being laced
Yep.
with fentanyl.
Yes.
It's not so much the drugs. The drugs got you where you are.
Right.
But it's the fentanyl that's killing everybody.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
not going away.
Right. And that's what I have said this to people too, that I know that they're not opiate users, let's just
Right.
say. And I'll be like, you do realize they're putting it in everything now. Yep. And I just, 3 weeks ago, I'm not sure when it was, but it was a weekend and it was out in California, and it was a comedian and 3 other people, and they were all snorting cocaine, and
Yep.
3 of them died, and one was in critical condition. I'm not sure if the other person died yet or not, but it was fentanyl. Yep. So that's what, awareness of that, everybody, like, whatever drug, if you're doing drugs, smoking marijuana, whatever you're doing, man, make sure you know, I hate to be like this, but make sure you know who you're getting it from, right. I guess, at the end of the day, because that fentanyl is ridiculous.
I can honestly say, the last dozen people that I've known who have passed away from an overdose, when the families got the tox report back from the coroner's office, it wasn't heroin, it wasn't cocaine. Mm-hmm. It was fentanyl toxicity. Mm-hmm. So
that's what happened with my best friend Josh last year. Yep. 1 Percocet, and it was pure fentanyl. Yep. And so that I guess could lead us into, unfortunately, what happened next in your life. So
before I get, I'll do it the right way this time. I'll show you. This is my son Steven.
Oh, we got to get there. We go.
Oh, by the way, my daughter was 23 when she passed away. My son was 28 when he passed away. But this is Steven. His addiction was a little bit different. He had his kind of goes into the mental health realm, depression, things like that, mm-hmm. and typically try to numb, mask the feelings, the pain, whatever it might be. But he did very well. He actually spent 8 years in prison for 2 charges he picked up as a youth/adult. Ended up in the adult court system. The judge didn't take too kindly to what he did. He actually robbed 2 elderly women, and he went from an elderly female judge, and basically she did what we were hoping was going to happen all along during his juvenile years, because she read him the riot act. The day that he was sentenced, she's like, your rap sheet, we'd run out this door right now. Mm-hmm. And she goes, I'm tired of you thumbing your nose at the law, so we're going to teach you a lesson. Mm-hmm. So she gave him 4 years on each count to be served back to back. Okay. No concurrent, nothing like that. You were going to go do your time. And he put it to good use. While he was in prison, he ended up getting his bachelor's degree in culinary arts. Tried to do as much as he could to better himself while he was in there. And this all stemmed from a crack addiction early on. So he kind of dabbled, but he was running with the wrong people. So they were robbing to get their money for it. But fast forward 8 years, he gets out, doing great. He made a very conscious decision not to come back to Toledo. Okay. He didn't want to come back to be in the surroundings that got him where he was in the first place. Because most people know, you're expecting the world to be as it was the day that you went in. Right. And it doesn't, it's changed. And so he was nervous and scared, but he had a very supportive girlfriend at the time, and he moved to Dayton. Literally, he got out of prison, spent about 4 hours with us, got in the car with his girlfriend, and they headed to Dayton to start a new life. He got down there, and he struggled because being a 3-time felon, nobody would give him a chance.
Right.
But he was also very humble, and he finally understood that. He took a job as a dishwasher in 2 restaurants just to make a living. Then in the span of about 4 years, he had worked his way up to executive chef in both restaurants.
Wow.
So he was working one during the day and one at night.
Wow.
He finally got where he wanted to be. He was happy, he was ecstatic, but he had this underlying mental health issues. One night, him and his girlfriend decided to, drink, get high, and they did a speedball, which for people that don't know, it's a combination of drugs. It's a cocktail.
Okay.
And they were expecting, to be what it is, and it wasn't. It ended up being car fentanyl that killed him, and it permanently put her in a wheelchair. She can no longer take care of her child because she functions at about 10 years of age. She's permanently confined in the wheelchair. She has no use of her hands or her legs. They're all contracted in just from hypoxia. But he expired in about 10 minutes time, according to what we were told. So his was a very quick addiction, unlike my daughter's, who's over many years.
Right.
Theirs is more just casual drug use. But the reason I bring his up is because where hers was just plain addiction, his was mental health.
Right.
And a lot of times mental health and addiction, whatever the addiction is, goes hand in hand.
Yes.
And so I always try to make people aware of that, you're not just a drug addict, what's going on.
Right.
If there's an underlying reason, and a lot of times it's an underlying mental health issue that caused it, not, hey, I went to the doctor and I had surgery on my knee and I had to get prescribed an opiate and I became an addict.
Right.
A lot of times there's underlying mental health issues that's why they're using to mask or to numb the feelings.
Right.
So we lost him in July of 2017. That one we never saw coming.
Right.
I spent so much time telling people in our support group when I was running the support group that we try to teach people how to grieve.
Sure.
Not that they're ever going to get that phone call, but we want people to at least have the tools in their toolbox if it ever does happen.
Sure.
And with my daughter, and we teach a lot of the parents, is we grieve on the front end.
Right.
And most parents will tell you that they grieve while their loved one is still alive because they're not the person they were. Right. That person died the day they started using.
Yes.
And everybody's always afraid they're going to get that dreaded phone call that they don't want to get.
Yes.
And, so you kind of give them the tools, how to deal with their emotions, what it's going to be like, when you get that phone call.
Right.
And so that's what I did for myself, was I grieved her addiction all along. By the time she actually passed away, and this is so hard for people to understand, but it was almost a sigh of relief because we saw where she was going. I mean, this beautiful girl is now prostituting, dancing, she's just going down this very dark road.
Right.
And we couldn't get her back.
Right.
So as hard as it was, and not that it made us feel any less, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it didn't make the grieving any less the day that we got that phone call.
Right.
But we can almost just take a step back and it's over.
It's over.
She's not fighting.
I know. It's okay. I'm going to intervene right now because I think it's a good time to do that. But when you say that, she's not fighting anymore, when I read that letter that I wrote at the Angel Walk, that's a big thing that I feel. And I've said this, I lost a good friend of mine, lost her daughter. Her daughter was 18 years old. And gosh, I don't remember how long ago that was that Alex passed away. But I remember that was my exact words, and this was before I even really knew anything about all of this opiates and all of the addictions like that. Because myself, my drug of choice was alcohol, so that's real acceptable in the world. It's great. It's acceptable because it's legal. So I remember when Alex passed away, my exact thoughts were just what you said. She's not fighting those demons anymore. And I've listened to, especially like on the Zooms that we did through COVID. And I remember the people we were talking to in, was it Defiance area or something like that? Tiffin. Okay. And I remember some of those people talking like every day they get up and it's a battle for them every day, where I'm honestly, I can 100% truly say that I am so blessed that I don't have that extreme battle every day. I never become complacent. Don't believe me, I will never become complacent. But these people were talking about like they don't want to walk out of their bedroom because of the demons that they're fighting every day. And then in my head, sometimes I go, well, come on, get over it. You can figure it out. It's your mindset. You know what I mean? But like you say, you're struggling with a lot of times mental issues and other things too. So that battle is real. And so it's the same with my niece, Brittany. So you were with me through all of that with Brittany. Right. And, I got that phone call and I hadn't really talked to Brittany in 3 years because it was the same thing and it just hurt me and I couldn't save her. So I had to let go. But in my head, I was always like, oh, that day I'm going to get that phone call. I'm going to get that phone call. And she'd call me from jail and be like, Aunt Tammy, this time I'm done. When I get out, and I would get on the phone with Midwest or whoever and be like, she's coming out. Let's, can we help her? And then I'd never hear from her. Right. And then I got that dreaded phone call. And I remember calling you and talking to you immediately, like, this is not, and so there she was, and I looked at, and Brittany is still alive.
Just to correct you, I called you.
You called me.
You made a Facebook post.
Oh, that's
literally
right.
Like 2 minutes later, I'm on the phone with
that's
you.
That's right. That was what it was for sure. Yeah, you're right. And she is still alive. She's in a facility for brain trauma. But I think about, the struggle that she went through every single day of her life. Nobody wants to get up in the morning and say, I'm going to go sell my body so I can get some heroin or crack or whatever their drug of choice is. Nobody wakes up like that.
As a parent, that tore me up.
Right.
She chose to leave our house. Never got to the point where we had to kick her out. But towards the end, I brought her back in. Worst mistake I ever made, because it is enabling, but I didn't do it for her benefit. I wanted to make sure that my grandson was taken care of. Yes. Before I'm trying to make sure that he's fed, he's changed, because I got sick and tired of seeing him running around with, a diaper hanging down his knees because he wasn't being taken care of. And it's that constant battle I had with, what's more important. And for me, it boiled down to taking care of him. Mm-hmm. But like I said, the day that it happened, it was a relief. It was hard on me and Tammy, my ex-wife. It doesn't change that immediate hurt and all that pain you feel that you lost a child. But deep down inside, it's like, this is the first time in 6 years that we don't have to worry where she is, what she's doing.
Yes.
We don't have to worry about, hiding my wallet, and all the things. Only people that are in this arena will understand some of the things.
Will understand it at all.
But,
right.
There's moms that are hiding their purses.
Oh.
And, I physically would take my wallet in with me even to go in and take a shower.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I left it for 5 seconds, it was going to be gone.
Yep.
So like I said, with her, it was just, I grieved all the way up. So when it happened, yes, it was hard.
Sure.
Not taking anything away from that. It was hard. But it was not as hard as when my son passed away. Never outside of recreational use, we never saw this coming.
Right.
And when I got the phone call from my ex, and she's like, "Are you home?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Right.
I'm on my way over. So now my mind's just going in a million different directions. What's going on? I'm trying to think, okay, I know my one son's okay. I know my daughter's okay. What's going on? And she got up to the house and she stepped out of her car, and I could tell right away, just the look across the street, I knew something was wrong. And she came up to the door and came inside, and she said, "Stephen's gone."
Yeah.
I literally just dropped to my knees and just screamed bloody murder. I have never done that in my entire life. but my brain just didn't know how to react.
Right.
I just lost it right there in the living room floor. And so it was a totally different process with him. I'm learning how to grieve on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
So there's many different ways to grieve, and I've had to do both.
Right.
But if it wasn't for so many people that, I've gone to other support groups and, tools that I picked up along the way that I don't know how I would survive without those, without the people to get through those hard times. And I don't know where you're planning on with this whole thing, but the one thing that wraps around everything we've talked about is stigma.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people beat stigma in the ground, but you cannot be afraid.
Yes.
And if you're the addict, if you're the family of an addict, you cannot be afraid to reach out.
Yes.
Bottom line, I mean, you may not be able to save them, but you can save yourself. You're going to give yourself the tools that you need to deal with your addict. I have a very dear friend. All of our kids grew up together. And this is one thing that burns into my mind why stigma is so important to deal with, because she knows what I do.
Mm-hmm.
The support group, the different things that I do with the Angel Walk. And one day I posted a picture of one of our shirts that we had for sale.
Mm-hmm.
And she put a message in there and she's like, "Oh, I'd like one." Way out of character for my friend.
Right.
Way out of character. So I private messaged her. I'm like, "Why would you want a shirt like that?" Well, she's like, I'm dealing with somebody in her family who is an addict. I'm like, "Do you mind sharing?"
Right.
And she told me it was her daughter, who I've known since she was about 6.
Oh.
I'm like, "Carrie," I'm like, "Why did you not come to us?"
Right.
Or at least to me.
Right.
It could have helped, because she had been in addiction for a year at that point.
Oh, wow.
But it's the stigma,
Mm-hmm.
that kept her from coming to me, knowing what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have been completely private.
Right.
Our families did things together. She lost her husband to a suicide, but her husband and I were best friends. I mean, Halloween was our big thing. We used to do.
Yeah.
We had people coming from all over Toledo to come see our garage that we always decorated. So I mean, we were very close. We knew each other intimately.
Right.
She still could not come to me
because of the stigma.
Because of the stigma.
Yeah.
I was scared. I didn't want you judging
Mm-hmm.
me. It's like, why would I judge you? I've gone through this with
Right.
2 of my own kids.
Right.
But to me, stigma is everything. You cannot be afraid.
No, not at all. And I'm glad that you said that, because I feel like just that, like so many people, and especially like not so much, well, maybe my generation too, but I was always told by my mom, don't tell anybody. What are people going to think? Right. And honestly, I would rather somebody come tell me and let me try to help any way that I can, and not keep it to yourself, and that's my whole reason for this.
Yep.
Right? To try to get rid of that stigma, whatever it is, whether you're going through addiction, whether you have a weight problem, whether you are, I don't know, any kind of thing that you're going through, even if you're battling, like our friend Don, battling cancer.
Yep.
But get out there and share your story, because you don't know whose life you can affect by that. And just like you said with your friend, and then she probably was like, why would I ever even think that he would judge me after he's been through that?
Exactly.
Right?
And lo and behold, she ended up coming to the meetings for a while. But her daughter's doing great now. Her daughter's clean. She just had a baby a month ago. I mean, she's doing great.
Good.
But it's getting them out of their comfort zone and saying, you know what?
It's
I don't care what you do. Come talk to us. Come
right.
Learn something. Come realize that you're not the only one. Because
right.
I know I was guilty of that way back when my daughter's addiction is I'm alone on this island.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you guys want to come out for dinner tonight? No, we can't.
Right.
And everybody knows that story. You're doing everything you can to hide your loved one's addiction. You start to isolate. And, that's the one thing that I learned along the way is, you can't isolate. You've got to get yourself out there. That's the whole reason for the Angel Walk.
Right.
I don't think there's a person out there besides the fact that we're celebrating our loved ones' lives. That's not why we're there.
Right.
We're there to bring awareness that this is real. These are people's husbands, wives, sisters, brothers, daughters, sons. That they aren't just statistics. When you see the news pop up and they say, opioid overdoses is up over last year. those are numbers.
Right.
These are people's lives.
Yes.
And it's so sobering for me, not patting myself on the back or anything, but when we created the Angel Walk, I wanted a way, because I see walks going on all over the country, for ALS and diabetes and cancer and stuff like that. It's like there's nothing for the families that have lost a loved one to addiction,
Yes,
or are dealing with addiction. So we started it off nice and small, and it was exactly what I had hoped it would be. And but to look back from year one to where we are now, I mean, we went from 250 walkers and about 30 loved ones, plaques that we had put up along the walk, to almost 1,000. And I don't even remember. We had,
there's so many.
We had like 180 boards that we put up at the walk last year, and it's sobering. Even the people, the media, when they come out and they're interviewing and they look, if they've never seen it or been involved with it, it's sobering to see somebody's loved one every 5 feet apart for a half a mile.
Yes.
I mean, it's sobering.
Yes.
And so to me, that's where trying to get rid of the stigma, tear down these walls that people have about addiction, about the families, because the families are a huge part of the addict in their recovery. They're going to be the best support system they got if they do it the right way.
Yes.
We all know enabling, all that type of stuff. Some of the things is so counterintuitive to what we know.
Right.
Like especially mommies. Mommies. I brought this child into the world. I can make him better. I can fix him.
Right.
And you have to turn around and shove them out your front door.
Yeah.
And say no.
Right.
It's the hardest thing a mother or a father will ever have to do.
Yes.
But you know what? You do it, or you're going to bury him.
Yes.
That's the bottom line. You are going to bury your child if you enable. And it's the carnage that gets left behind from addiction. And I see people have tattoos all the time. It's not the addiction is not just for the addict. It's a family disease.
Yes.
And it affects so many aspects of life. Missed work, for parents that have to take care of this or take care of that. Like being thrown into, child rearing all over again.
Right.
There's just so much carnage that gets left behind.
Yes.
Even day one, the day after my daughter passed away, I had a black gentleman show up to my front door who, when he stepped up at my front door, he blocked out the sun. That's how big this gentleman was. Wanting to know where my daughter was because he owed her money.
Or she owed him money.
She owed him money, I'm sorry, because it got to the point where she was selling to use. And I had to stand there and tell him. Actually, I think I was actually crying because I'm sure. We had family members over and we were kind of just talking about stuff and getting ready for the funeral. And I had to tell him she passed away. And it's like, and it's sad because here he is, a drug dealer. Right. But he stopped long enough to say, "I'm sorry."
Yeah.
He goes, "I have no beef with you." He goes, "I'm sorry for your loss," and left. Yeah. It's like, it was just so weird to sit there and have this gentleman who was getting ready to probably pistol whip me. Once she found out that she had passed away, he offered his condolences and left. But there's a lot of carnage that gets left after during addiction and after addiction.
For sure. And I want to give you the pat on the back for your Angel Walk because I think, especially, 2020, we couldn't have it because of COVID. And then when we had it this year, so it's one of those bittersweet moments, right? Because you're standing there and I was emceeing, which I was honored, and it was just such a pleasure to do that. And but standing there and looking out at all of the faces out there. Now I'm going to get emotional because that every one of those people that are standing out there have been affected by addiction, whether they lost a loved one or their loved one is in addiction at that time. And it's just humbling to know that you care so much. You could have taken your children's deaths and just been like, you know what? Oh, well, but not, oh, well, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But you instead started, reaching out to other people and helping other people with that. And that's what my whole vision in life is, just to continue to help other people.
I knew I could not help my own kids.
Yes. It's okay.
I wasn't going to let their addiction or their ashes be their legacy.
Yes.
I needed to do something more, not for myself, but if I couldn't save my kids, I'll be damned if I'm not going to at least do something to try to save another family from having to get that phone call,
Yes.
to having to go through, what my family went through. And if I could teach somebody what I had learned along the way to keep them from falling into a lot of the pitfalls that families fall into with addiction, that's what I needed. I needed to do it.
Yes.
It was part of my healing process. Obviously, it doesn't work too well, but
well, it does. I mean, it does. I mean, you're going to have emotions. I mean, you're a human being, for crying out loud.
But I just I needed to do something so their death wasn't in vain.
Yes. Yes. And I'm going to tell you, I know personal stories of people that you have done that with. I don't know if you remember.
Our phone call this morning with that individual this morning.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't know why you do what you do. I'm like, you're the reason I do what I do.
Yes. And but when I conversed with her, I mean, it was like we knew each other, and I explained a little bit about what I've been through, and, she's ready to get help. And like I told her, I'm here. You have my phone number now, and I'll call and check in on her, but and that's what we do. And that's why we do that. Right.
She didn't know who else to call.
Yes.
She only came to a couple meetings, but she knew what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And at one of our fat Christmas parties a couple years ago, she was having a hard time, so we invited her and her kids to come so her kids could have a Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have any direct effect at the time, but it planted that seed.
Yes.
That she's got somebody that she can come to.
Yes.
And today, it came to fruition.
Yes. So. Yes. And I want to share with you, because this will probably make your heart a little happy. Remember the young girl, I won't say her name just for her own sake, but remember the young girl that moved down here from up north that was,
yes. And
we talked to her a few times and tried to get her in a place, yep. And then she didn't respond and stuff, but she is still sober to this day, just so you know. And she's told me, I ran into her at the restaurant, like, I don't know, probably about 5 months ago. And she did tell me, and I probably didn't do this because I'm so bad at things like this, but she told me to tell you that she appreciated everything you did. Because I know that we were really like,
sure.
I brought her to a meeting,
yep.
And sweet young girl, she still is. And unfortunately her sister is not, but she still is and she stayed down here. She works as a manager at a restaurant now, and just really, her daughter's her world. And I'm pretty sure she just lost, he was either her boyfriend or a good friend. I'm not sure how he passed away, but through that, she told me, she's like, I didn't have to use again, because just those little seeds that we dropped in there gave her enough to know what she needed to do. So when we talk about planting those seeds, sometimes it's that little seed that we plant that grows, and they, in their head, the tools, like they're like, oh, wait a minute. Ross said this. Oh, wait a minute. Tammy said this. It's those things. And that's why we do what we do.
And to me, I realized this from day one, not to kind of really backtrack here, but my daughter had been gone about 9 months when I went to my first support group meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no intention of going. And you've heard this story.
I love this story, though. I
had such a big chip on my shoulder. But I had some very good friends that their daughter was in active use at the time, and they were going to the FAD meetings over in Zeph Center.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to get rid of them, so let's just go. Let's get this over with, right, so I can go back home and be pissed off some more.
Right.
And I went, and when we got in the room, and here I am, ashamed, mad, the whole 9 yards. There was probably 400 people in this room, and there were 4 chairs in the back corner of the room.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, that's where I want to be. Get me back in the corner. I don't want nobody talking to me. Don't say nothing. And we did. We kind of got back in the corner, and there was an empty seat next to me. And the whole time I'm sitting there waiting for this meeting to start, I'm like, please, God, do not put an addict next to me, because I'm probably going to punch him in the face.
Right.
It was where I was at that time.
Right.
Anger about addiction, anger about addicts. And somewhere after the meeting had started, a friend of mine that I went to high school with was actually there dealing with her daughter's addiction. And she stood up and she said something. And I had no intention of sharing, but I started responding to her comment, and I got to talking, and this is probably the hardest part of this whole thing. But as I was telling my story, I got very emotional, and I feel a hand on my back and consoling me. I'm not looking either direction. Here I'm thinking it's my friend. She's rubbing my back, making me feel better. And I sat down, and God, with his humor, decided that's exactly what I needed. He put an addict next to me. I'll never forget what he looked like the day that he walked in there. He had these nasty shoes on, nasty pants that still had blood on them from using. Mm-hmm. I was beside myself at that point, but it was this addict that was consoling me. And the reason I share this is because this is the power in telling stories and speaking out about addiction. Is you never know, whether it's via podcast, whether it's face to face, you never realize who you are going to affect. The gentleman that sat next to me stood up at that meeting, and he's like, I want to get help. He's like, I never want to see the look on my mom's face that he has.
Yeah.
I never want my mom to get that phone call. And Dart happened. Our Dart officers happened to be in the meeting that night, and they took him, and he has been sober to this day. Yes. It was almost 6 years ago. But he has been sober, and my daughter's, death plays a small part in, his daily recovery. He never forgets her. Yes. Because of her story. So yeah, Juan and I kind of have a special bond.
That's Juan. So I did my first real interview podcast with Juan here in Toledo, and he talks about that. Yeah, and that's how we met, and that's how that's how I met Juan, was through Ross at that event that we were at. So and I think that's what the power that you just said. So that's why I do this, and that's why I share so many different stories of hope, because
I get mad at her because she's always putting her little live videos on Facebook. I get mad at her when she doesn't. Yeah. Because she doesn't know who she's affected. Some days I'm just in my feelings or having a bad day, and it's like, Tammy, where's your videos?
I honestly have not been doing those. And I need to, and I know I need to. And a lot of it lately has been my own, myself stopping me, because I'm worried what words are coming out of my mouth. But like you said, it's okay, the words that come out of my mouth. So, and that's the thing, we don't know who we affect with that. And that's why I want to do this, because my biggest hope in all of this is just to help people know that they're not alone in this. With your friend that didn't message you, and then finally, hey, I want one of those shirts, and you're like, but why? And so I just want people to know that you're not struggling alone out here. That's the biggest thing. We are not alone. There are so many, I guarantee 95% of the people that you walk past every day or drive past, man, they are struggling with something, and they just don't know where to go. And that's why we do this, to help others get through their days. And I am 100% blessed and honored that I met you in a funeral home at a drug awareness meeting, because you are one of my favorite people in the world, and you've helped me so much, and just showing me I've lived both sides. Like, my son's dad was definitely a crack addict, right? And I've lived that life, but I also was that addict, as an alcoholic. And so I have both sides, so I can relate kind of to both sides. But you bringing me into the group of awareness that you have has just helped me grow tremendously. And asking me to speak at the Angel Walk was huge for me, to be able to really pour into people and just let them know that they're not alone. And the addict,
even on a small level, I've had you talk at just at the regular meetings.
Yeah.
Just where it's a little more intimate. People are more willing to want to open up.
Yes. So I want to thank you for coming here and doing this with me today.
I am also responsible too for her famous line of rainbows and unicorns.
Rainbows and unicorns, that's me. And it's so funny, because even people that don't really know that, I'll put that in a comment or something, and they'll be like, oh, there's the rainbow and unicorn girl. And my friend just posted a picture on her story the other day. She had a unicorn on her watch, and there was a rainbow, and she's like, rainbows and unicorns, Tammy.
So some days I feel crappy. And you'll get on there, and
That's why I need to get back on there.
So I started saying, you know what?
Yeah.
You're the rainbow and unicorn queen.
That would be me. That's why I bought those shoes for the event. So they were like bright and rainbow and unicorny because I knew that it was going to be one of those days. So I just thank you so much.
No, thank you for inviting me.
I appreciate
it's hard,
it.
But I will always take every opportunity to talk. And like I said, if there's one person out there that this touches, then
right, exactly. And I thank you for everything that you do. And I am going to have to interview you and your beautiful wife soon too, because you guys have an amazing story of hope also. So we're going to do that soon too. So thank you so much. And I hope everybody has an amazing day and we will talk to you soon.